Thank you. Hello, everyone. It's like a reunion, isn't it? We're seeing so many people we know. I thought I was going to have to introduce Maxine, and rather than say who she was, I was going to say, put your hand up if you know who this woman is.
Just know my business model.
Or her business model, Absolute Collagen. Do we have any? What? No one? Oh, no, wait. See, look at that.
Yeah, it's the business model, not me. I get that.
Brilliant, fantastic. Welcome, Maxine. Lovely to see you. We were lucky enough to go on the Recharge F1 trip to Milan a few weekends ago with some of the people in the room. We are literally still buzzing, especially because some of the people we last saw on the trip are here. But we're going to be talking about the Absolute Collagen story and your journey and the very early approach we took to Absolute Collagen. So do you want to kick off and just share a little bit about your founder story and when you started Absolute Collagen and why?
Yeah, so back in 2015, I was a mere 49, and I did this project at university that led me to collagen. I will not bore you with the project because it was too long, but I discovered collagen in my kitchen, and I know I didn't discover it because the Greeks had already discovered it many, many years ago, but I rediscovered it. And I wanted to bring this supplement to people en masse. I knew I had to work fast. I had absolutely no business experience whatsoever. But what I did have is I knew I wanted to put the consumer at the forefront of absolutely everything I did. So the Absoluters, as they call themselves, I created a supplement in a sachet. Here we go, just one here. And we were the first to do that, liquid collagen. And I was told I had to be in retail. I was told I needed to be back in a big brand, but I was adamant I wanted to go direct to consumer. And that sounds a bit crazy if you think like 10 years ago, very few people going direct to consumer then. But I wanted a relationship with her because we've got 12% male, majority of our consumers are absolutely are women. I wanted a relationship with her. I wanted to make sure every single aspect of her journey, including the education on collagen, was absolutely perfect. And I knew I was the only one to do that. And so that's really how we kind of started. That was 2015. That was when we sort of discovered the collagen. 2017 was our official launch. And now the business model's copied absolutely everywhere. It's crazy, really. But subscription was all about making her life easy. I didn't want her to have to put anything else on a to-do list. So go to the post office waiting for this. And no obligation subscription was really important to me because at the time I'd been hooked into a couple of subscriptions that were wrong and they legally bound me for 6 months. So all those things we did and the business models that's copied absolutely every time, it was all about putting her first.
It's really hard, I think, for us to remember, but back in 2017, the phrases, things that we now know as really common phrases like direct-to-consumer, unit economics, single product, subscription brands, were really not known at all. I was lucky enough to work with Maxine Absolute Collagen from 2017 to 2020 on the early years of their journey. And let's just talk about some of that, because Maxine was the first person I'd met who approached me. I was running a marketing agency specialising in e-commerce, using phrases like direct-to-consumer as a phrase, and very clear that this was a product that was going to be a subscription brand delivered through letterboxes. How did you know about that stuff?
As I say, I didn't. I just knew I wanted her journey to be perfect. And so all those things, all those sayings came around just by putting her at the forefront. So that's really how it happened. And yeah, I mean, I hounded Tash. I decided, again, this is absolutely crazy. Back then, there was only a few people doing direct-to-consumer digital marketing, or there's only a few people doing digital marketing. Can you believe that?
In e-commerce.
It was absolutely crazy. And I found Tash, and I'd stalked her a little bit on Google and things like that. And then I went to see her do a talk, and I said to her, "Are you taking on any more customers?" She said, "No." And I chased her with my yellow box, and we grew together. I mean, none of us knew what was going to happen. And you always say the metrics in our brand, Absolute Collagen. I remember you saying your brand's acting differently to every other brand I work with.
Yeah. So to give you an idea of the landscape, Recharge. I mean, I don't know when you arrived in the UK. You guys will know, but these things were not commonplace. So we were working across a number of Shopify brands. Recharge had arrived in the UK, and we were somehow heard about Recharge, that we must install this. You wanted a subscription. None of us knew what a subscription brand would end up like. And I remember thinking, I said to you, the brand is behaving differently financially compared to other brands, which we all know is how subscription brands behave. Much of that stuff is commonplace now. We understand.
And I remember the subscription model, and people say, "Oh, well, why subscription?" And I just said, because to make her life easy. I don't want her to come onto the website and keep reordering. I want her to be able to know it's going to come whenever she wants, and she can cancel any time. And again, at the time, that felt like really hard work, explaining that to her. Why are you going to do that? And yet now it's so commonplace. And at the time, there were I think there was one other subscription company that we used first, and they couldn't meet our expectations that Recharge could, and that's why we switched. And I remember the day we switched to Recharge, oh my God, I remember thinking, I think we had 3,000 customers at the time, was a phenomenal amount, and thinking, oh my God, what if we get this wrong? And Brad, my tech guy, I mean, the thing I'm really, really good at is employing great people who are far superior to me, because as you can see, I'm probably not your tech model, But it was about employing really, really great people who were great at what they do. And I remember Brad at the time, he's still a shareholder today, and that nervousness about switching over, and I think he just did a few at a time to make sure it all run perfectly. And Recharge were absolutely brilliant at that. Our 14-day or 28-day subscription, it was all quite new at the time, and partnering with somebody that was growing too, we grew together. And, I think the Recharge have always put the consumer, us, and the consumer first, and knowing what was coming down the line. And we were just saying about Oisin must have known, I think at the time when we were in Milan, he was saying he had 5 or 6 or something.
Well, I think he had about 10 business. Well, this is a Recharge story. So Oisin, the founder of Recharge, told us this story in Milan about how he'd had all these different businesses that hadn't worked out. And he had like 5 or 10 tech ideas. And he suddenly realised that the subscription one was going to be the one. So consumer behaviour was changing, the way people were shopping was changing, and Recharge was also at the forefront of that.
Yes. So I think it's fair to say that, Absolute Collagen's success was based on right time for the product. The consumer doesn't always know what they want. Nobody knew at that time they needed collagen, but it was the right time for collagen. It was the right business model, partnering with the right people, and all those things that seem really hard now. And it's not as easy to repeat that now, but for us at the time, everything was aligned. And it's been a fab journey.
So let's talk about the brand now. Probably the most well-known collagen brand in the country. Obviously, things are really changing again now. We have a movement towards. Well, talk me through how you're moving it digitally as channels shift and AI comes along.
Yeah, so AI, we're integrating AI across all our platforms, and it's about putting the consumer first again. It's about realising what they want. It's streamlining all the processes, and we were just saying about AI, and we were saying that it's here. There's no doubt about that. And is it going to make sales better? Possibly, but the main benefit is going to be to the EBITDA, to your bottom line, and in streamlining the processes. And I think, I'm not the AI person, obviously, they're just there. But it is something that we are in looking at, and I know ChatGPT have integrated with, not Shopify yet. Who is it, George? Etsy in the US, yeah, and so they're now talking to Shopify about partnering with Shopify, meaning that you'll go onto ChatGPT and you'll be able to buy products, which actually is, we should be able to. So it's about looking forward thinking and making sure all those processes are in place.
And how important is it to you, bearing in mind Absolute Collagen was built very innovatively at the time, to be innovative now? How does that sit within the brand, like to lead?
I think you've got to. I think if you don't, you're gone. I think you have to be forward thinking. You have to be part of every movement that comes forward. Not everything, every tech stack is going to be successful, but I think you have to be part of it. And even the platforms, we were talking about how many platforms you need to be on now digitally. There's so many, and Sometimes you don't know which one's going to work for you, but you have to try them all.
So coming on to personalisation and community and her, it's really interesting because what those of us in digital marketing talk about personalisation, all this stuff, Maxine sees as the consumer, but we're essentially talking about the same thing.
Yeah.
So talk about that now and how you look after the consumer now. Obviously, you built a very early community before the word community was even a thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, we were the first move on the community, really, and it seems bizarre now that that is kind of a business model that most people would die for and try for, strive for. And that was really just how our community was built. It was literally by putting one person on social media, who's still with us today, our community manager, and saying, I do not want any customer, any Absoluter to be unheard. Whatever question she's got, I was getting busier, so I couldn't answer everything. I want her responded to. And we do that across all platforms now. Our community, our social media community is a private, you have to be invited into it. We do get questioned a lot. It's probably one of our biggest selling tools and we should probably make it public, but that's where she feels safe and that's what she wants. She wants it to be private. And so that's really important to us. Community, again, is, innovation for products. We speak to our Absoluters a lot. We've got hundreds of thousands of Absoluters. They're always on emails. And we survey them a lot about what products they want. They don't always know what products they want, but they know what their issues are. And keeping that open. And I think that's why, tech is absolutely fundamentally, important. But you still have to have that hands-on. You still have to have the contact. And I see lots of businesses coming in, running businesses from a spreadsheet. Oh, that's a really good business model. Copy that, run it from a spreadsheet, run it from our bedroom, off we go. And that will take you to a certain point. But you need that personalisation. You need that intimacy almost with your consumer. And that's how you build a brand. And it's not just a product, it's a brand. And that is how we innovate our MPD. We've got a few MPD coming up soon, and that all sits alongside what we're doing. Next year, we've got absolutely a new supplement that we are absolutely so excited about. And you just have to keep innovating again. She doesn't know she needs that product. It's really interesting.
Well, that's a perfect segue because we were talking about how the industry has become so, I think for all brands, it's become so competitive as more and more people have, come into this space. And the collagen market is famously competitive, as is the makeup market and all other markets. They're all
Well, we were just chatting, and collagen is, a massive market now. Do I fear that? Absolutely not. If we were the only collagen product, probably means that collagen doesn't work. We're the only one with our own personal clinical trial, which is double-blind placebo. Most collagen people's clinical trials based on the ingredient supplier. We never wanted that because anybody who knows about ingredients knows the ingredient supplier go to the clinical trial people and say, this is the answers we want. We're the only collagen brand that's ever gone out and audited their supplier. We've literally gone out and done that. And, we all know that not all ingredients are equal. So our traceability on our sachets, I can tell you exactly what hour this was made. And that's really important because I think what terrifies me about the supplement industry is it's unregulated. So it's easier for me to create a supplement than it is a topical, which is so scary. And then what you've got with topicals, you've got chemistry going on that people don't understand. So you've got all these different ingredients that you might take independently. Once you ingest them, there's kind of a chemistry going on. Your liver and your kidneys can only take so much. The purity of the collagen is really, really important. And I talk about that a lot. And people say, why have you only got 8 grams? And I liken it to Fairy Liquid. I'm sure they would be happy about me mentioning Fairy Liquid. I probably should have shares in them. But 1 drop of Fairy Liquid and probably need 6 drops of another brand because it's not as good. That's how I liken Absolute Collagen. We could literally triple our EBITDA today just by buying a cheaper ingredient, and we will not compromise on that. We don't talk about it enough, actually. We won't compromise on it. So the supplement industry is absolutely getting saturated because it's a growing market, and that really excites me. But all I would say to you is just make sure the ingredients are as pure as can be. It's exciting to be in a growing industry, in a growing market.
So when you think about what success looks like to you now compared to, say, 5 years ago, as the landscape's changed, what does it look like to be a modern D2C brand? You've always been at the forefront as a D2C brand. How will that change?
I think for me, my role, I've got a CEO. My role as founder is I've got the Absolute on one shoulder and I've got the team on the other, and those are absolutely paramount to me. So the consumer and the team equally as important, and I'm always, how will that decision affect her? So even today, every part of my team has got different areas they're sort of concentrating on, but for me, it's still concentrate on her and making sure we never ever lose sight of her, who she is, what she wants, what she doesn't know she wants, with respect. And I think the respect is absolutely important. Absolute Collagen is all about aging powerfully. I have no desire to look 21, thank God, hey. I just want to be the best version of myself, and we're about that. We're all about building people up, and with age comes wisdom, comes maturity, comes power. It's about using that in a respectful way, and it's also about respecting our consumer, respecting we've all got different opinions and different things we like and different things we don't. So we're very much about you do you, but we will always respect the way you want to do it. And for me, I will never lose sight of that. But it is about the innovation. It's about respecting her in a way where we will innovate for her. I always say, Absolute Collagen might have a few million in the bank or whatever it's got. That money doesn't belong to me, it belongs to her. And how can we best serve her? So it's about looking at next trends. It's about looking what she may need or may not know she needs.
And what about creative cut through? That's something people ask me about all the time. And obviously all brands, the bigger they get, have to keep cutting through creatively and keep standing out. Have you got any advice on creative cut through for the people here today?
For me, it's about your brand, what it stands for. And you can, I look at the collagen brands out there at the moment, and I'm thinking of one in particular. They're very, they're aimed at a totally different market. It's very yummy mummy, it's very yoga, it's very matcha, and I do love matcha. And that's great. And then you've got another brand that are very, they're all about, looking perfect, injectables and all that. Do you know what? You knock yourself out, we stay in our lane. And if you do that, your consumer still feels seen and heard. And so the creatives are around that. It's so easy. I see so many brands copy other creatives because they're working for them. A brand can think, it's a really good creative, it works for them. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for you, and it might take you away from your authenticity. So for me, it's always about turning up as you and being authentic, and that definitely comes in the creative. I think you just got to push boundaries as well. You've got to try, but it's push your boundaries in a way that still respects your consumer. We've just been through a massive creative few months, actually, a rebrand, and I'm so excited. It's all launched now, and it is about aging powerfully. And it was finding that voice in a way that was not patronising, not directive, because your consumer, it depends on your market really, but my consumers don't want me to direct them, they don't want me to tell them, they want me to encourage them. And I always say, and we never sort of say fight the signs of aging, because nobody looks good after a fight. It's about embracing who you are. So we're very anti-aging, but it's that creative, your message has to come through in everything you do and has to be consistent. You can try new things, you can push your elbows out and push boundaries, but if you're trying to create a brand, it's about making sure you stay really authentic to who you are. And that's difficult when you bring people in and you grow, because they've all got different ideas, and it's about listening to your team as well, right? Because if you want them to push boundaries, you've got to listen to them. But it's just making sure you stay authentic. That's what I think.
One of the things that I've often talked about with Maxine, and I know from working with her over the years, is the role that intuition plays in your business as well. I think, a lot of us in this space can be very factual and data-led. And I can tell you that my hand on my heart, Maxine has always used intuition as one of as many guiding forces. It's served you extremely well. Yeah. Some of the things that you're talking about today, i.e. creating a community before it was a known thing to do, and were decisions you took intuitively, which were right. How much does your intuition play a role in what you do today, especially with a much larger team? And how do you trust it? How did you learn to trust it?
It's really interesting because, a business can't survive on intuition alone, right? We know that. We've got, spreadsheets and all of that. But I always say, we took investment in 2020, and investment was about bringing great people. It was never about the money. The business didn't need money. It made the family a little bit more comfortable. It came to the family, but it was about bringing great people in. And by bringing great people in, you get great ideas, and you've got one silo that works on Fred Street, one silo that works tech, one silo that works there, and that's all brilliant. My job is to kind of, look up from the spreadsheet, look up from the computer, look into the real world, and how's that feel? And it's really interesting. My intuition is bloody brilliant, there's no doubt about it. And it come from misspent childhood, trust me, and lots of things. But it sounds really kind of like a bit sort of witchy, but it's just there, and you've got to take the temperature of something. You can't just run a business from a spreadsheet, and I think that's where a lot of brands go wrong. We in the early days, we were looking at computers before we launched, at a big pot of, at the time, pigs, trotters and chicken feet. You don't want to go there. Hey, it's not that anymore. That's exactly how I started though. And we were looking at the computer, looking at our pots, and then eventually we had to look up into the real world, and that's where I think a lot of brands go wrong. And again, the intuition to know your audience. We probably made quite a big mistake over the last year of going after the audience that wasn't us, because it's all about new customer, and I was like, Jesus Christ, and my intuition was telling me that was wrong, right? 100% it was wrong. But because I brought great people in, I thought, okay, they know what they're doing. Eventually, I had to go in and go, right, this isn't right. We've attracted customers that aren't us. We need to get rid of them. They're like, what? Because if you remember, during the early days of Absolute Collagen, I would phone Tash up and I would say to her, can you stop acquiring customers for a while, please? And she would go, said no one ever. What? And she said, what? And I said, I
actually would get really upset, genuinely.
You really definitely did. And it was just about, taking the temperature. Is everything okay? Is everything right? And it's a very brave, courageous move. And actually, it's something we've just started doing again. We've just started going, do you know what? Our net's too wide. We're attracting a customer that isn't us because we got greedy. And so, again, that doesn't stay true to who we are. And I would rather sort of get rid of the customers that aren't us, with respect, by the way, because if you're talking to your consumer that has Absolute Collagen running through them, they've got a yellow streak, they'll get it, and everything you say they'll get, and they'll rebuy, and the basket will get bigger. So it's a brave thing to do, but that is probably my intuition. And hey, it is a bit, wooey, but you can't run a business on intuition alone, trust me. But it's where we started.
But it's a fantastic thing to also take into consideration, which is how things feel. So just before we wrap up, I mean, you've got you've got investment in the business, so it has to grow as all these businesses with investment do. What's next for Absolute Collagen? What will people see coming up next year, and what can they be excited about?
So I think Absolute Collagen is in a really exciting time. I think a lot of brands go through what we've gone through. We grew to a £30 million business, lots of people, lots of voices, lots of hard work, which, I'm not scared of hard work. But where we're at right now, I think is really exciting. We've just really, really crystallised our brand, what we stand for. And that sounds crazy. We've been going for a long time. But I think you go through those dips in a brand and you have to reaffirm what you are, because everyone else's opinion comes in. We have got exciting products coming up. Our 5-year MPD is phenomenal. I'm very excited about that. And not every product is going to work, though. I know that. I'm open to failure because not every product we launch is going to work, and that's okay. The issue about being first mover on something, because you're always the one that's got to educate the market, right? And that costs a phenomenal amount of money. I'd rather probably give it to ChatGPT than Mark Zuckerberg. Hey, we'll see about that. But it's an exciting time. It's always got to be exciting, because when it's not exciting, you've got to have fun, right, guys? Business is hard bloody work, right? It's hard work. I remember the days of getting up at 6, staying on my computer. We're just talking about this. Funny conversation. Tash mentioned a finance guy, Paul. And this is in the early days of Absolute Collagen, and I would literally get up and put my dressing gown on, get on my computer, and I'd be on there. Margot would go off to school, my youngest daughter. She'd come home for lunch, I'd be still on the computer. She'd come home for dinner, I'd still be on the computer. She'd come home at night, I'd still be on the computer. And this one day, I was on the computer, oh, shit, I got a meeting. Not very tech savvy, this was 10 years ago, whatever it was. Anyway, I pressed whatever on the computer, started talking to this guy. I'm still in my dressing gown, by the way. And I've got a habit when I talk, I'm like, yeah, I'm ADHD, so I'm always fidgeting. And at the end, he said, do you mind if I share this video? I was like, shit. I went, do you know what? Yeah, share it. You know, because we can't take ourselves too bloody seriously, right? So for me, it's about having fun. It's about turning up for her. It's making sure she is the absolute, is absolutely running through everything. And ensuring the team are happy. They've got to be happy. You want to push boundaries, but you've got to listen to them. And it's tough when there's so much going on in the business to really keep that in mind. But they are so important, because without them, you're nothing. And your partners as well. You know, you have to work with them, listen to them. And that's the great thing about Recharge. I mean, I don't think we'd be where we are without Recharge. You know, we've grown together and that's been phenomenal. Yeah, so just have fun as well.
Well, I was about to ask, what's your advice for other people in the room? But you've given your advice, which is just to have fun. No, that's fantastic advice. And the story...
Customer...
The story that Maxine just told about the finance guy was because, and this again shows you how different things were, we just knew the brand was behaving differently. So we started financially modelling it and we realised what was happening. And all this is now done by tech, right? This is all stuff that we can easily do. You just know off the bat, but you know, we didn't at the time. So phenomenal success story. Thank you so much, Maxine. And thanks to Recharge as well for having us here today and being part of that journey. There's no doubt that the two brands really grew in synergy and both learned from each other. So it's really great to come back here today and share that story with everyone.
Thank you, Tash.
Thanks, everyone.